with drawings of the raffle tickets. Has everybody got a raffle ticket? Has anybody got a question for anybody up here?
One for Kathy. Just want to know, why did you, what in the past made you want to write the series of the pastor series?
Oh, okay, thank you. All right, they say write what you know, and I'm a preacher's kid. And so I know pastors, good and bad. So I kind of wanted to do a thing about that, because I understood the games that were played on them and the games that they've played with others. But also, I'm in love with mysteries. I've read them forever, for me, forever. And so I really enjoy a good whodunit. So I thought I'd kind of pull. Okay, and a lot of it takes place at a bar, and I really like bars. So. In fact, the little cake things that are in the back, the main bar in the place is called the Fire and Ice House, Angie's Fire and Ice House, and the chocolate Texas sheet cake is on the menu every day. So that's where the bites come from. So, there you go.
What's the first swag we want to?
Oh, Captain's discretion.
There are 3 Boogie Woogie CDs back there, classics. And that's a theme. The music is kind of a theme that runs through this. So I'll read this and then we'll draw 3 numbers. I hope everybody's got a raffle ticket. Floyd Domino, cowboy hat pulled low, announced a switch. Now you're going to hear from an almost forgotten keyboard hero, Freddie Slack. Let's start with one we played last night. See how it sounds with 6 players, not 2. This is at the Pianorama at the Coffee Creek First Annual Barbecue Competition.
Do you want to bring the bucket up here?
It's down the road a piece. The left hand started, gripped, built, and just when Alice thought she couldn't wait a second longer, the right hand pounded into life. I love this one so much, she told Kinseer. Just wait, he said. Here comes the magic trick. And it came. A rippling right-hand run, a slalom down the keyboard, the sequences of keys overlapping, harmonizing, surging together with the rock-steady left hand. Oh, yeah, Alice said, mesmerized. Okay.
Yeah, I won't hold it up too high.
3. No, not too high, Russell. 524-308.
You got it?
Yep. All right.
Yeah, just the last 3.
Okay. 287.
Very good, baby.
300.
Whoa.
All right. Good. Okay, what next?
Okay.
Swag
Well, I can do the
or a
swag.
question?
Or a question.
So Helen,
Sir.
where, oh,
What?
Okay, go ahead.
my wife is correcting my manners.
Sorry.
Full-time job.
It is a full-time job. So where do your characters come from?
Well, that is a great question. Some of you may have recognized people in the first few books. And so it's true that people I know have been inspirational. Some of them, though, just come out of nowhere. Like when Alice takes her truck into the central garage, she sees this guy who turns out to be an old football player who made it large, had some auto dealerships on the West Coast, and has come home to Texas to grow old world wines on limestone hills. And so he just, we don't know where he came from. I will say that some characters are a mishmash. I met this absolutely fabulous 94-year-old woman last summer in Estes Park, Jean Warner. She had come out to Estes Park in the 50s, had climbed every mountain, all the 14ers, just was remarkable. And she became the scaffolding for the character Val in Goes Next Door, who has had a completely different life. But if I hadn't met Jean, I would never have thought of Val. So, yeah, they come from different places. Thank you. What?
Have you seen any drugs over your property?
Not yet.
Okay, raffle drawing. Where did I put it? Here it is. I have 3 of my favorite beers from what is possibly my favorite British brewery in a basket back there, along with 2 British cheeses, a Cotswold and a Wensleydale. The beer, you don't know how it hurt to get rid. There's a Fuller's ESB, a Fuller's London Pride, and a Fuller's London Porter back there. So they'll go great with the cheese. Yeah, I know. Diet.
Oh, Russell, you really in the book. You're not alone.
Number 304. There you go. You like English beer? It's back there on the table. I just think it's good with one taste.
Well, my best friend,
Yeah.
Dave Berry, one of my best friends.
There you go.
Any other questions?
Any questions?
Where did your
What?
characters come from?
Where do my characters come from? My characters are, the 2 main characters are Elaine Hope, who's a detective chief inspector. She came from all the British mysteries I've read. She's a little bit of Harriet Vane from Dorothy Sayers. She's a little bit of Jane Tennyson. And she's a little bit of Carol Nelson from Wire in the Blood series by Val McDermott. Peter just sprung to life. And Peter is he's a physician, he's a surgeon. But he was grievously wounded in Iraq, burned and disfigured. And they meet actually when she arrests him for murder. So that's a story all its own in the first book. Amelie first.
Well, you live in Texas. Why did you choose to write about British coffee?
Good question. Back in the 70s, I stopped reading science fiction. I started reading mysteries for some reason. And it was about the time that Masterpiece Mystery came on, and everything they had was a British mystery. And so I got into it. I started reading Christie and Marsh, the standard cozies. And I really got tired of them quickly, but fortunately I discovered Dorothy Sayers. And Dorothy Sayers is so much richer. She writes so much deeper into her characters than either Christie or Marsh. And she captured me. And I've been a fan of the darker side of British mysteries ever since. So when it came time, when this story was developing in my mind, it was just a natural. I was familiar with it literarily, and that's where it came from. The story of these 2 people who meet in very strange circumstances. I tend to write about my friend Bill, who I don't know if he's still here. He had to go early. He always tells me, "You like to write about damaged people." I said, "Yeah. What better kind of people are there to write about?" And
What other kind of people?
what other kind of people? Yeah, there's just no fun anywhere else. So yeah. So that's it though. Gogi?
Yeah, what made Fiona, who's so different from Elaine, what was that moment when you realized that they needed to become best friends?
Oh, that's a good question. Wow. It came when there's I don't want to do too many spoilers, okay? I'll try to say it without being a spoiler, but Elaine rescued Fiona from a situation and spirited her away to her flat, to Elaine's flat. And over wine, they started talking. And that's when I realized that Fiona was what Elaine needed. She You know, I intentionally created Elaine as a loner, and through the entire first book, her only friends were Peter and the cops. And I realized that if she was going to get out of the situation she's in, she needed a friend, a woman. And so when they were talking there, I realized it's Fiona. So that's it. Okay, Kathy.
Oh, it's just more, you have some more swag?
Oh, you have more swag?
There's a little more swag.
Just,
Just, yeah. Okay. The character Eddie Lafarge, the football player guy that started doing lines, he turns out to be really important. Because he asks Alice at Central Garage, would you ever be interested in learning any evasive driving? She's shocked. She thought her driving was perfect already, but it's not. And so there's a scene where she goes out to the vineyard and does some evasive driving. However, there really is a model talking about characters. The vineyard's kind of a character, and it's modeled on one out on the Regger Road in North Hayes County. It's Hawk's Shadow Winery, and I commend it to you. So when Eddie's talking to Alice, he says, I bought this property way back when I got my first big signing bonus, so I thought, how about going home and trying to make wine on my hills? And when I got here, I lucked out. Everything I know about making old world wines in these limestone hills, I learned from the folks over at Hawk's Shadow Winery, north of Dripping Springs. My Viognier wants to taste like theirs someday. And Alice is learning. She's out there at the wine tasting. 2 hours sped by. Alice learned more than she'd ever known about French oak, American oak, Hungarian oak. She tasted the subtle differences that different oaks could impart to the same vintage. She took notes. New worlds opened before her. Okay, let's draw. There are 2 bottles. One's a Cabernet and one's the Viognier.
I always wondered how to say that. Viognier. I was going born year.
That works fine.
It was $2.91.
Wait a minute, let me get my glasses.
It's petty. $2.91. Well, you get to pick. Do you want the Cab or the Viognier?
Which one's lighter?
The Viognier.
That's what I want.
Okay. $6.94. Is that a 6? No, it's not.
I'm with 2.
8. It's an 8. $8.94. Nobody has it. Oh, of course. Yeah, it wouldn't be there if she didn't.
Somebody come in real early.
No, guys, it really is an 8, honest to goodness.
Okay.
This was the one you already called.
Yeah.
Take another one.
All right.
You know what? I don't think this is the right one because it says keep this coupon, so this was something up. Yeah.
Okay, all right. $2.96.
It's me.
She called for another restaurant. Yay. All right, Ann. Yay. Any
Questions?
Questions?
So Helen,
Oh.
tell us about Boogie Woogie.
Boogie Woogie, I didn't really know much about it. I mean, I think we all heard, if you're my age, you heard it, you just didn't know what it was really called. But it's had kind of a revival with the players in Austin, and I would certainly say Floyd Domino is a leader there. Johnny Nicholas also plays with him, and they both said they could be in the book, so they're both in there. It's a driving left hand and a free right hand that messes around while the left hand has to be rock steady. So it takes enormous physical strength that looks effortless. And it is a strange kind of music because you almost cannot hear it without kind of getting this grin, on your face. It makes people happy. it's grew up in the barrel houses of East Texas in the woods in the 20s and 30s. It migrated to Chicago. The famous practitioners, Meade Lux Lewis, Albert Ammons, Pete Johnson, and sometimes they feel kind of hectic when you're listening. You might not be able to do it just all day, but it's so much well worth knowing about because of the improvisation and the impact it's had on American music, and it's sent its tentacles out worldwide. So thank you for asking about it. I've been trying. I've been trying to learn it and learn out about it. And I think Parker's, the jazz place, is a good place to go hear it. So also commend that to you down on 4th, I think. Thank you for asking that, Tom. Does everybody have a bandana? I thought somebody would ask about bandanas. Why,
Go ahead and tell
why
us.
bandanas? Why bandanas? Bandanas because they're such a piece of our history. They are so personal. You know, if somebody gives you a bandana or you inherit a bandana, I'm wearing one of my dad's. I'm so worried that it's just going to fall into nothing but threads. But people, the little boy in Ghost Next Door is wearing his granddad's bandana. You think about it, it's been around someone's neck or around their head or in their pocket. It's a very personal and yet totally indispensable. What are you going to do when you need a tourniquet, you know? Hold that bandana. So I think they're part of our history, part of our culture. You know, rustlers, bad guys, good guys, they all have to have a bandana. Yeah.
Well, before we do my basket, because I think that one's the one that's next, I wanted to point out two things. First off, thank you, Malvern Bookstore. You guys, you support your local authors so incredibly, and just really, it's appreciated. Second thing is that, wow, what a great crowd. I do know that there are several folks here that I'm aware of. Helen and Russell and I, even though not at the same time, critique groups. I see my writing groups out there. I see my book club friends out there. I see my person that I sit on a bar stool next to and get drunk with. And so it's just the community of support that we smaller authors get from all of you is sometimes the only thing that keeps us in the chair in front of the computer. So thank you. This is a wonderful crowd, and thank you so much for being here as well. So just wanted to get that said. Shall we do a draw for the...
Here you go.
Uh-oh. Glasses back on.
Okay.
All right. Just one. Okay. This was inspired by Murder in the Second Pew, which is the book before the cover one that's coming out. And this takes place over 4th of July holiday. And I was talking about Angie's Fire and Ice House before. So this new waitress comes in, and she confronts Angie, the bar owner, who's also in love with the preacher. It's wonderful. I get a lot of mileage out of that. But anyway, so Chelsea comes in and said, "You said if I had any ideas to let you know." Chelsea opened the bag. "Here you go." She pulled out a pint of strawberries, a pint of blueberries, and a large container of Cool Whip and some party milk with toothpicks. "Well, I saw the specials you planned for today. The All-American, Bourbon, Southern Comfort, and Coke, and the Firecracker. Wild turkey shots with Tabasco. They're very popular, Angie said." Well, I hope they are, because I brought the makings for the wild turkey shots with Tabasco. And a copy of Murder in the Second Pew. So, our number chosen here is 295. Woohoo! Oh, you like wild turkey. Okay.
I'm going to read a little bit more since you guys snuck it in.
Well, it has to do with our
I know. Well, this has to do with beer.
Oh, okay.
Elaine and Peter used to meet at a pub. This pub actually exists. It's called the George. It's near the Borough Market in Southwark. Anna and I didn't stop there this last time we were in London a month ago, but we did stop at the other pub in the book. So, if you're ever there, though, this is called the George, although I call it Nelson's Glory. Elaine inhaled the familiar yeasty fug of the pub and stared into the pint in front of her. Nelson's Glory was a traditional hand-pulled, oak-paneled, dark-boarded bit of England that her father had frequented during the family's early years in London, before he'd inherited the shoe business and moved them to Glasgow. She took a sip of the stout, its sweet, earthy tones flowing over her tongue, the bready aroma creeping up the back of her throat. Her tongue licked the froth from her lips. She'd revisited the pub in the days after she'd joined the Met as a nod to her deceased father. Most recently, it had been a meaningful place to meet Peter. They'd met there on their first date, if that's what it was. She'd been engaged in a murder investigation and hesitant to see him, wanting to put this persistent American behind her, expecting to have a polite pint and end the evening with a rushed goodbye, see you around. She lifted her gaze to the empty seat across the table. They'd sat in the same nook. He'd been lighthearted and undemanding, a gentleman who instinctively understood the boundaries of a woman he respected, inquisitive about her past and her future, interested but not prying. He'd stayed away from her present, knowing her devotion to the job and that she couldn't discuss the case, especially not with him. Her eyes returned, downcast, to the pint. The memory of their first date cascaded into later, richer images, with him at the piano playing Cole Porter tunes, improvising lyrics, laughing when they ran out of rude rhymes, sitting at the kitchen table listening to him philosophize about the horror of mushy peas, in his bed, locking eyes, then mouths as their passion grew, curled nude together in his big chair, silent, the scent of their love-making gathering warm under the duvet, the lights of Canary Wharf in the distance. She knew he was the kind of man who, once committed, would care for her until death. She had never told him that she loved him. She didn't know if the reason was that she was honest or afraid.
Our launching authors are going to be back at the table and we'll be signing. I'll be watching them sign and hopeful that I see you all in a couple of months.